Peace world. What's good? My name is Wood, and I'm the creator here at the Pay Me No Mind Sports and Entertainment channel. Also, Bite Down Boxing. Pay me a visit over at bitedownboxing.com. Not a whole lot to get into today, man. Shout out to Kyle Lowry for bouncing back and having a solid game last night in a key game. Tying up that series of the Eastern Conference Finals, tying it up 2-2. A little bit of a down night for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm seeing now some on Get Up on ESPN some discussion about how can we consider these guys, the current guys that are on the rise. Giannis, Kawhi, how can we consider these guys the best players in the world? Giannis is doing something for the first time. He's leading a team to the conference. He's in the conference finals, but he's leading a team to the finals maybe for the first time. There's going to be some stumbles. If you went back and checked, I believe LeBron averaged maybe 18 points a game his first year in Miami when they went to the finals. And then you saw his last couple of finals, or his last few, when he was averaging, 48-8 or 49-8 or something. So he's doing this for the first time. Kawhi, who knew Kawhi had a full half-court game? Who knew he could, dribble, take people off the dribble? And I mean all the way to the cup. Not so much just two dribbles and a jump shot or, shooting a three. Now we're seeing him do everything. So these guys are doing stuff for the first time. Just saw an excellent breakdown of kind of the new look Warriors, what we saw in the Western Conference Finals from Legler. Made a brilliant point. Just talking about the continuity of the offense now, and that now that you have a lot of non-scorers getting minutes in place of KD, a guy like Steph Curry is moving around, a lot more throughout the whole possession, and that's something I didn't really factor in with a guy like Lillard. Checking him and following him around, now he's running a whole and covering a whole lot more space on each possession, because it's a good chance wherever he moves to, they'll find him. Versus when Kevin Durant was on the court, you knew pretty much once the ball got to him that a shot was going up. So that might have affected somebody like Dame Lillard, who was also battling injuries. Now you're covering a guy, an extra 10 or 12 seconds of possession, going through more screens, and just exerting more energy on the defensive end of the floor. So maybe that's why Lillard's numbers were down a little bit more in conjunction with the injury situation. So the numbers came out yesterday on Wilder's, the title defense against Wilder-Breazeale. That's Deontay Wilder. It peaked at over 1 million, I believe. There was an average of 990 that was out there, but it was like 110,000 streaming numbers. It was some screams at the end of that. At 43 seconds to go in that first round, it was a lot of screams. But there was 100,000 plus streams that were factored into that number. So 790 or some thousand was about what it was. That's the crazy thing about being a boxing fan right now, is like you also have to now be a television executive. You have to be a matchmaker. You have to be you have to know what the live gate is or was, or the last 5 gates were, revenues. It's ridiculous. It's exhausting too. But I don't want to argue how you should look at those numbers. I think one thing for me is that you told us about the ESPN mag, the Fame 100 or whatever it was, You tell us about the 13.77 million viewers during the final four intermission sit down with the champ thing. They took the time. Steven Espinosa took the time to have him included in the Billions episode 2 weeks before the fight. He's been to various showings and whatnot. Salute to the whole team too. Showtime Sports on winning an Emmy or winning 2 Emmys for the All Access Wilder and Fury. If I didn't say that yesterday, but you tell us all of this stuff, and then these numbers aren't really higher than before the or the Ortiz fight. So it's a lot of activity and a lot of investment for all for naught, really. But I'm not trying to tear this guy down. I just kind of look at this for what it is. You could say that it was due to the opponent. I know the ticket sales were a bit of an issue. But let's go back to the comments, the killing comments and the where he said them. One thing that I don't get is, how was it beneficial to Deontay to say something like this and give some reporter or some internet guy such as myself or, the many others out there, to give them this great footage for their clicks and their activity on their platforms. Even now with the knockout. The knockout has, probably 15 million views at the little clips that are out there on Twitter and the different outlets who put the 20-second clip out there of the knockout. All of this stuff is benefiting everybody else except for him. And that's all I'm sitting here saying is, how simple could it be to just go and talk with somebody to help soften some of this stuff. I mean, there's being real and there's keeping it real and keeping it funky and all of that. But when you're in the position that he's in, you should be winning commensurate to your ability and to your standing in your sport. You're the best doing this. In some regards, you're one of the best doing this. You're in the all-time coveted division, the champion of the heavyweight division. It's one of the most coveted titles in all of sports. You should be benefiting from that on a major level. So if I'm sitting here talking about, I had an issue with that. I had an issue with that for boxing and for your star to be up here versus just, kind of being stagnant. So, but how difficult would it be to go work with somebody, get a little bit of coaching, and to figure out a way to put out a message out there that, like I said, invites people in, instead of just looking at you like an idiot and turning off the TV and not even tuning in. And that's what I wanted. I thought I mentioned it on the live stream that night. We could say what we want about Mayweather, but he knew how to keep the narrative and the presentation and the press conferences and the all access. He knew how to give you all of that and never mess up, completely turning customers away. You always hated him, and you wanted to see him lose. That group out there wanted to see him lose, but they tuned in to see it. We got some, and I was there when they had a special engagement with the world champion, and he came into the room and he was all emotional about how stagnant his career was. And I talked to Layman Brewster. I had him on the podcast, and he said it's because he's a darker skinned guy, blah, 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 blah. Okay. If we have all of these knowns, we know these things, why would we go do things that are controllable that contribute to those things, that feed into those things? So, like I said, there's plenty of ways to say I'm a killing or whatever, I'm a hurting badly. There's plenty of creative ways to say that without just flat out saying it in the tone that he said it in. But again, I know we're in a point where just because you question something or you point out something, you're deemed a hater. Lastly, a good friend, good fellow writer mentioned, well, Paulie Malignaggi has been talking all of this. I'm putting him in a coma. This Lobov or Lobov or whatever his name is, and he's talking about, I'll kill him and I'm gonna bury him and all of this stuff. And how come there's no outrage about that? It's bare knuckle boxing or bare knuckle fighting. Who gives a damn? Who gives a damn about a fighter who's a retired fighter who's now just trying to get a check any way that he can, who had 6 or 7 knockouts his entire career? You never even heard any thuds with you rarely even saw him snap many guys' heads back his last 5 or 6 years. In a way, lands more vicious at a bantamweight at 118 pounds, lands more vicious sounding punches than Paulie Malignaggi. So that's a false equivalence to me. To compare that to that, who cares about Paulie Malignaggi? We're talking about Deontay Wilder. And another thing, I believe, very last thing, because I'm getting ready to get out of here. There's an expression out there, I believe, in politics, that's when I've heard it before, is that when you're explaining, you're not winning. And if you got to come back after the fact and say anything to address something before, then you probably just shouldn't have said it. Why waste time explaining about it then? Well, he really is. This is. Then maybe you shouldn't have. Maybe you should have just saved yourself some time and been more creative or had a better way to say it. But again, who cares in the big scheme of things? If it's your career and like I said, you don't want to maximize what's out there for you, take what's out there before you and win on that level. No big deal to me. No skin off my back whatsoever. Hey, this is another Morning Wood. Thanks for checking in with me. Hit that subscribe button. Go back and check some different things on the playlist maybe. Hit the like button if you don't mind. Leave a comment. I get back at people pretty regularly. So let me go on and get off of here, man. Have a great day. What's this? Wednesday? Hump day? All right. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.